Hi, it's Amy again from Authors Buzz, and I'm here with award-winning author and my best friend, Tab Lord. Today, we are talking about spring cleaning. It's not actually spring cleaning. It's a spring assessment for your writing rhythms, how things are going. You set your goals, and now it's beginning of May. Doesn't look like it out here where I am in Portland. And you're going to reassess. So, Tom, tell us about what you do every spring, if you do it every spring.
I do. I do it. Hi,
Yeah.
Aim. First of all, good to see you.
Hi.
Hi, everyone out there. Yeah. So generally speaking, we all sort of, not everybody does it this way, but when it's the new year, it's time for resolutions. It's like taking stock of the year before, sort of like dusting that all, off the table and starting fresh, right? And so often we create writing goals, or we have a goal. And if your goal was, I'm going to write a book, and you really actually think this is the year that you're going to do it, you start to put some structures into place to give yourself the time. You learn things, do what you got to do. Well, I always like to do a first quarter check-in when it's spring. And I started doing this way in the beginning of my writing career because, you set those goals. And if you wait until you're halfway through the year or 3/4 of the way through the year, or it's the end of December and you're like, gosh, that didn't go as I planned, at the end of the first quarter, you have an opportunity to reassess and reevaluate and kind of make a shift if you need to. And if you're a new writer, you really don't know what you don't know about your own process. And you don't know what works for you well. And you don't know what you're really capable of or what you still have to learn. So it's a good chance, I think, to check in with yourself at the end of the first quarter. And when spring, when everything is coming alive again, and you're maybe getting some renewed energy, evaluate and, kind of assess and maybe make a new plan.
So what practically, what does that look like?
Well, practically, it actually looks to me, how much did I actually write?
I guess what I mean is, like, you sit down with a notebook, you just kind of think about it, like
both. I actually look at my manuscript and I'm like, okay, I did this many, I started here and I'm here. And if I want to finish by here, have I gone far enough? And if I, or do I need to reassess? So mostly it's an actual, like, really, did I do what I said I was going to do or what I had hoped to accomplish by this point? And if I didn't, why not? Sometimes the why not is something really big has happened in between and there's just no solving that, an illness or, unexpected life things could have jumped in the way that were really big and you had to just put it aside for a while. But if it's really just, gosh, I thought I really could write 1,200 words a day every single day of the week with no break, maybe that's not realistic for you, and I think that's a great time to reassess and say, okay, if I really did, between the, January 1st and say May 1st, if I really wrote 30,000 words, that's really 10,000 words a month, give or take a little bit, right? And so then you back that down and say, all right, that's a pretty good assessment of how much I can do, right?
Right.
So it's a good time to check in, I think. It's also, I start to feel fall. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it also sounds like what you're saying is, be honest with yourself. You may want to do 1,200 words, but the way that you write you might be 800, 900, 1,000. So I think you've told me about what you've accepted about what's a lot for you and what's a little, because you're a really clean writer the first time around. Do you mind sharing that?
Yeah, I'm about 1,000 words a day is my comfort zone. And, so when I set the goal for 2,000 or 2,500 or even 1,500 sometimes, I start to feel stressed because, like, it's out of my comfort zone. And sometimes you do need to push out of your comfort zone. If you've got a deadline and you're a professional writer and you have a deadline and you've signed a contract, you need to get your work done. And so you do what you have to do. But that's a short solution, right? That's a short amount of time that you're kind of powering through something. I remember writing one of my books that I wanted to submit it. I wanted to, the one that actually got me the agent. It had been dragging along. And I remember New Year's Eve of 2019, I sat down and I was like, I am not going into the new year with this book outstanding. I am finishing it today. And I think I hit the end at like 11:15 on New Year's Eve. And my husband, it was during COVID, so we weren't going anywhere or doing anything anyway. And he's like, "You up, honey?" I was like, God damn it, I'm going to finish this book. And I did, but that was a unique scenario where I just kind of like, And you can sort of think too, if you need to put the pressure on, or you really want to look, well, if your day-to-day life only allows for this much space, but you think you can accomplish more if you really had time, could you sneak away for a weekend and actually call it a writer's retreat? Could you clear everybody out of the house for a couple of days? And, could you just go to a friend's house and say, I went to my sister's over the summer. We have sister visits anyway, and I spend a week with her, and I planned in my mind to clear my calendar of everything else. And the only thing I was doing was hanging out with my sister, but we worked, she worked all day and writing and finishing this manuscript. So, there's ways to evaluate how best you work, what's effective, but I think spring is a really good time to take that break. It's like you've still got 3/4 of the year left, and you can use the information you just discovered about yourself and your habits, and you can then make a better plan, or maybe, just zhuzh the plan a little bit for going forward.
Right. So what we were talking about is just that. So, and you just sort of addressed it, is that the difference between self-honesty, both, and what you have time for, but what you could do if you had more time. So maybe sometimes part of it is rearranging the rest of your life.
Yes, for sure. And and again, if writing a book or writing a manuscript or a screenplay or whatever was on your to-do list, your goal, your bucket list, and you're trying to implement it, then you actually have to create the space for it. It's not going to happen on its own. And that requires a little bit of discipline. It requires definitely setting some goals. Like I think it's like, okay, I'd like to create a book and I'd like to be finished with it with the end of the year. But if you don't actually break that down and say, all right, realistically, here's how much I can do each week, then it's not going to happen. It's just not, you can't dream it into existence. You actually have to do the work, and it is work. And it will feel like work.
I would say they those two things harmonize together. So yeah, you do dream into existence, but work is the activity, the action is the mechanism for which that happens. But it is still very important to hold the vision, or what the hell are you're doing it all for? Yeah. So what else are you looking at besides word count?
Well, I'm looking at
what you get out.
You're right. Every person, I think, every creative type, every person has a rhythm to their life and to when they feel most effective, most productive. And I would suggest that there's a rhythm to your day. When you're feeling most creative or most willing to do the busy work or whatever. If you're a morning person, an evening person, we all have our preferences, but some of them I think are baked into our physiologically, and then we also have, I think, a weekly rhythm. I mean, I don't know about you, but by Friday, my husband and I both are like, Friday's going to be a light day now. We have the ability to do it. So we really don't plan meetings on Fridays, and we really say, okay, we're going to do a little bit of work in the morning, but we're going to take Fridays off, and we can, so that's nice. Now, sometimes that means a Sunday afternoon, I have to, block in a couple of hours of writing time, but I don't care. I like to do that.
That's me as well. Friday, I don't want to do anything else, especially if it's nice out. Yep. And then Sunday, I like to feel like I have a good handle on the week ahead. And that actually feels good. I don't feel like depressed of doing work over the weekend. I feel like I'm making it easier on myself.
Yep. And I think that that's really true. I think we have our times when we feel most energized, most creative, and to be able to capitalize on that by sort of working our life practically around it. And, it also, there's a seasonal rhythm. Like I am super productive in the fall, and spring is my next most productive creative time. Trying to get me to write something, new in the summer. I have all these great plans to do it. I think, it'll be great. I'll write a summer romance, and like, no, just stop. It's not going to happen.
I'm nodding because, I have this new book idea that I'm so pumped about. And I just I'm shooting myself in the foot if I try to start it now. I can make notes, maybe scenes or something, but to actually dive into that place where I'm saying, okay, I'm going to try to have this done by here or do the word count. I'm just going to end up criticizing myself. So that's something I'd like to point out, that all this is really good. by being honest with yourself, both with what you can and can't do, by setting goals, and then evaluating how well you're achieving them, you're also kind of freeing yourself to be the best writer you can be. So I think there's a mental health, emotional element. Can you speak to that a little bit? I know you. I know you about that. Yeah,
totally. Because when you set a goal or you set a set of intentions and you're not really, and you don't reach them, you don't feel good about yourself. You feel like, oh, and by being honest, like I'm a slow writer. Like I said, about 1,000 words a day is my comfort zone. Can I push harder than that? Of course. When I have a deadline or something like that, yes, we all have, obligations, right? Beyond what we are comfortable with sometimes. But in general, if I honor the rhythm that is natural for me, and you see the real productivity over time and you're more productive. And I think, minding your mental health is a big deal for creative types. We're alone in our head for a long time and we're swirling with stories and we can be stuck in the, in the room by ourselves. And I swirl. I can spiral into a rabbit hole of, I don't even know, anxiety. I can talk about that another day, but but it's this isolation kind of a thing. So I actually have to build in social time into my day and yoga time or taking a hike time, or I build all those things into my day. I'm very, I over plan, I would say. And I plan for the downtime and I plan for the social time and I plan for the things I know I need because my mental health is important. And because when I get in a dark place, I'm not super creative anymore and it just kind of all fizzles out. So I've got to watch that sort of thing. And I've got to remember when it's wintertime, I might start to feel a little bit, heavy. Like the world feels heavier and I might feel like I have to counter that with hot chocolate, say, or fire or whatever. And that's part of the rhythm I'm talking about too, though, is knowing your own personal rhythm of when you're coming alive and recognizing that things are cyclical. The flowers will bloom again, the days will grow longer. And, and to some degree, that's a luxury to look at it that way. But on the other hand, if you can even hold a picture that we have this natural rhythm, whatever yours is, everybody's is different. And you can hold that picture for yourself to understand it's allowing yourself to be just a little bit gentler with yourself. And I think in the end, you're more productive when you can be that way and when you're healthier.
Oh, and absolutely. I mean, the process of writing and then the other side of it, which is publishing, is not an easy path to choose. So you've got to take care of yourself along the way.
It can be soul sucking. And I think we need to have a topic for another one about the artistic and the business side of what we do and how do you keep those in balance and stay and approach each one correctly in a healthy way, right? Approaching the artistic part and then approaching the business side, keep them in balance, but also, so let's make a note. We'll talk about that another time.
No, actually, this is just a note for a question I want to ask for this conversation. So do you recommend scheduling in kind of like some cushion room for if things come up?
Yes. Well, I am super organized. I mentioned that already. I have notebooks. If I could show them to you at this camera, you'd be like, we
will have a show and tell
sometime. I have my calendar online. I have my little to-do notebook. I have the notebooks. It's ridiculous and OCD, and I completely recognize that, but it's a system that works for me that I've been using for years. I even used it when I was working outside the home and I had a different career, a pretty busy one. So, it kept me on target. And for me on Sundays, I like to look at the big picture things. I like to mark in all of the big deadlines or big projects that I have coming up. I like to put in all the personal things that I have coming up for the following week. If there's a doctor's appointment, if there's a, whatever, I need to get my nails done, all those kinds of things. I put that in the calendar. I block in my time for working out. I block in my time for whatever. And then I go back and I fine tune like how many hours today can I write and what's the busy work look like and what time of the day do I want to do it? So I'm scheduled down to the hour day to day. And then you get a flat tire, or back in the day, one of the kids is sick and just barfed, and like you gotta adjust, right? And so the first thing I do is I let go of everything. And I say anything that doesn't, require a phone call to say, hey, I'm not coming in today, or I've got to cancel this meeting. I do that stuff. Then I handle whatever trauma I can that's going on around me. And then the next thing I do is I go back to my calendar and I reorganize. And it reorganizes me in here as much as anything else, because I feel like the more that I can be proactive with my time, it doesn't, I'm using my time for myself. Proactive with my time rather than reactive. That's the word I'm looking for. Some days the words are scrambled, even though I'm a writer. I would rather be proactive with my time than be reactive. And sometimes you have to react. But once I'm done reacting, I come back to taking charge of that schedule. So as best I can.
Right. So, and all of you out there who might be totally jealous of Tabitha's discipline and schedule, like, so am I. I have my own system, but it is not quite as advanced as
Let's admit it. It's not quite as OCD as mine.
Well, I mean, you've written maybe twice as many books as I have, though, so that might have something to do with it. But okay, so as you were speaking, I kept on hearing this message coming through that is both on and off topic, and that is that to do this thing you want to do, write a book, you have to balance being gentle with yourself with being demanding of yourself. So
I know, right? It's such a challenge because, if you go too far into the be gentle with yourself side, it's not going to happen. You don't write the book. Yeah. If you go too far into the other side of it, maybe you did, but at what price, or what's the quality of it? For me,
what's the quality? I would say that. Yeah.
Yeah. You might have to come back then, and in edits, you've got a whole nother year of editing to do or something like that. Or it's just, you forced something that wasn't quite, the story wasn't unfolding. It was forced. So, it's finding that. So I would say your intention matters in this case. If the intention is to accomplish something and and you actually do the work of carving out the time and you stick to it maybe 75% of the time, and then you allow for this other 25% of life to get in the way, build in a little cushion time. I think that's okay. There's no right answer, but you do, I've written blog posts both on how writing every day is really important. And if you don't, discipline and and then I've written blog posts and talked about how it's really important to be gentle with you. Both are important. And I think only if you're honest with yourself, know if you're cheating yourself or if you're overtaxing yourself. Only you really know the answer to that.
And sometimes the kindness is, for me, the kindness is doing it every day, even if I'm not into it and it blows. Like, I just, or even if whatever my goal is, word count or time, and I'm like, just do something. Like, I'm gonna have to be. Hopefully, we didn't hear that word. We don't intend to swear on this, but like that.
I think I already did. So, oh well.
Well, that's the that's why writing a book teaches you so much about how to do anything, and about yourself, and about this balance between, you need the discipline and you need the work and you need to have a plan and you need to be kind of like a freaking badass about it. And at the same time, you don't want to burn yourself out or write crap or, be cruel to you don't want to be, you don't want to be mean to yourself along the way. Or like, I heard somebody say, you don't want to gaslight yourself. Like, I did a post about that and something else. Like, we're all about not bullying, but you don't want to bully yourself. But sometimes you've got to be like, dude, just do it. Just do it. You'll feel happier if you do it. Just do it. So it's got to, so sometimes it's that tough love, but I think it still needs to come from you knowing it truly is what you want and what's best for you.
Right. Right. And that you're in the like, I could bully myself until the cows come home in the summer and it's still not going to happen. And I've been writing long enough to know.
You just feel like crap. Yeah.
I've been writing long enough to know that summer is my rejuvenating brain time and it's my social time. And I get a ton of stuff done with advertising and, other different busy work that's just as necessary to my business side of my work. So it's not like I'm doing nothing in the summer and just saying, never mind, these 3 months, I'm just going to sit back on my, no. But I am recognizing that creatively, it's not my best time. And so why don't I focus on the things I'm better at that time of year that, and honor the fact that my creativity comes differently. And so when I do that, and I look over the last 10 years that I've been writing, it's a pretty effective system, and over time I still accomplish what I want to accomplish when I'm looking at the long game, and then but in the short term, I do have to plan things in the summer. I travel a lot. I go to a lot of Comic-Cons in the summer. I'm signing books. I'm exhausted from doing that. But then I also want to lay by the pool and have friends over, and well, right now we're in our RV living all over the country. So I want to enjoy, I want to enjoy that. But at the same time, I don't want to let my, my good habits go either. So it's being honest with yourself and having some self-discipline, and, it's balancing the two.
Yeah. Really. I always get tricked because sometimes the first hour and a half of the day is summer. I'm like, I could do this. And then it goes along a little more. But I don't feel like doing it anymore. Yep. Anyway, I think that's probably any other tips you want to share before we.
No, I think that's it. Honor your rhythm, recognize what it is. And the first quarter of the year is a good time to look back, and you can at least see a weekly and daily rhythm for yourself. Oh, I like writing in the morning. Oh no, I'm really good at night. Oh, I can only do it on the weekends, or whatever. Assess what your real word count can be each day. And do you need days off when you're writing, or do you not, that kind of thing. So you can assess and then sort of plan ahead, and with just these things in mind, that we all have this way we work most effectively. And I think the goal of this conversation is to say, can you think about how you can be most effective?
By evaluating how it's going so far, by looking at what you said, what you did, and what needs to change or not change to get to where you want to go.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. I'm Amy and Tabitha, and we'll see you next time on Authors Buzz.